initiation or ritual was introduced to change the quality of the novice's soul, to raise their consciousness to a superhuman level, and to make an eternal being out of them. Thus the rituals of Adonis or Tammuz in the Near East, of Asaru in Egypt, of Orpheus in the Greek islands, of Dionysus in Hellas, all depict death and resurrection so that one may symbolically experience a superhuman state and eternal life. These practices psychologically resulted in the true victory of humans over their fear of death. Through initiatory death, the human being is absolutely convinced that they will be spared the pangs of death. Netert Ma'at is the foundation of all the mystery schools of thought. The quill is also from the ostrich feather, which was the Ma'at feather. Ma'at was the wife of Tehuti Thoth, and the daughter of Ra. Yes, these are people, just like you. Blood, flesh and bones. She was the Netert of the unalterable laws of heaven. When the Egyptians said heaven, they meant the skies, the solar system, galaxies, universe. They actually recorded Septet Sirius and Sahu Orion as heaven above. Ma'at was the female Netert of truth, justice, right thinking and the weigher of the heart. She was the ruler of the day of judgment. Yes, Bible and Quran got it from this. She is the order which rules the worlds through balance. She was a net, master, sustainer, lord, of all the worlds. The creation of the universe could not have been an accident for one reason, and that is, that there is Ma'at order within Nun chaos. Like everything else, life began with one thing in mind, to be, and with this thought a thing became, and impregnation existed, by the will of He as Hu, the creative force of will. Hu as a word gave birth to Yahuwah, Jews' God, Jehovah, Christians' God, and Uwa or Allahu, Muslims' God. Ma'at can be seen on numerous walls of ancient Tamaray, Egypt. Neter Haru Heru, Horus of ancient Tamaray, Egypt was initiated into the ancient Tamaray, Aeo, ancient Egyptian order, mystical teachings by Aset Isis, Al-Set. Most forms of initiations can be found on the walls of Egypt. This is where initiations originated. Take a look at Rama, a form of Krishna from India. He was initiated into the teachings by sage one with wisdom and good judgment, Vashishta. The Messiah Jesus Christ was initiated into the order of Melchizedek, Hebrews 7:1-2, New Testament. And Melchizedek was none other than Tehuti Thoth. So was Abraham, Genesis 14:18, and Moses, Quran 18:60-82, which in the Muslim commentary of the Quran they literally confirm that this Melchizedek is the same one referred to as the King of Salem in Genesis 14:18-20. In the Holy Bible it states in Mark 1:9, and it came to pass in those days that Jesus came from Nazareth of Galilee, and was baptized of John in Jordan. Your baptism was an initiation, so was the Muslim Shahadat. Another discipline of life, spiritual studies require an authentic teacher. Muhammad, 570-632 AD, was initiated by Waraka ibn Nawfal, 527-639 AD, and many others were also initiated. Even the greatest teacher cannot teach a person who is not qualified to learn. Therefore, we will begin by enumerating the 9 virtues of a spiritual neophyte, beginner. These imply the qualities that anyone desiring to practice spirituality needs to work on to develop. The teachings of bodily discipline and mystical reality are the means by which an ordinary human being can rise to the state of spiritual truth, inner fulfillment, peace and abiding happiness in life. These teachings were in ancient times passed on through an exact system which involves listening to, study of, and meditation upon the teachings in a proper environment and with proper guidance. This method of teaching is known as initiatic way of education. There are many styles of bodily discipline, although their goals are all the same: union with the real you, the inner deity. These include bodily discipline of intuitive wisdom of the divine, of devotional union with the divine, of meditation and mind control, of virtuous living, of cultivation of the latent life force energy. Second, an authentic spiritual instructor is not only someone who is advanced on the spiritual path, or even just someone who has reached the full Neteru, deity, state. A spiritual master is someone who is spiritually grown and who also is well versed in the scriptural teachings of all doctrine and methods of training the neophyte according to their level of overstanding. Therefore, a counselor of bodily disciplines must first achieve a high degree of overstanding and personal, spiritual emancipation, since the subtleties of the mind must be well overstood. The teacher must be able to be a refuge for all people, have an extensive knowledge of the teachings pertaining to his or her level of attainment, and enthusiastically pursue all forms of bodily disciplines. The term spiritual master means one who opens up others or imparts spiritual wisdom and eradicates ignorance. In Pa-Neterat, the deity's system of bodily disciplines from ancient Tamaray, Egypt, bodily discipline, there were 3 levels of neophytes, aspirants. 1. aspiring devotees who are being instructed on a probationary status, and have not experienced inner vision. The important factor at this level is awakening of the spiritual self, that is, becoming conscious of the divine presence within oneself and the universe by not having faith but facts that there is a spiritual essence beyond ordinary human understanding. 2. Striving devotees who have attained inner vision and have received a glimpse of cosmic consciousness. The important factor at this level is purgation of the self, that is, purification of mind and body through a spiritual discipline. The neophyte tries to totally surrender the I factor, personal identity or ego to the divine inner self, which is the universal self of all creation. Read the Mind book. 3. Established devotees who have become identified with or united with Netarot deities. The important factor at this level is opening of the higher intellect. That is, experience and appreciation of the divine presence during reflection and meditation, union with the divine self, and the divine marriage of the individual with the universal. In order to have a better understanding of what Istaljan initiation is, we must look into the distant past in order to discover its purpose and use. Every cause has its effect, every effect has its cause, everything happens according to law, chance is but a name for law not recognized, there are many planes of causation, but nothing escapes the law. The great sixth Egyptian doctrine, the doctrine of cause and effect, embodies the truth that laws pervade the universe, that nothing happens by chance, that chance is merely a term indicating cause existing but not recognized or perceived, that phenomena is continuous, without break or exception. The doctrine of cause and effect underlies all scientific thought, ancient and modern, and was enunciated by the Egyptian teachers in the earliest days. While many and varied disputes between the many schools of thought have since arisen, these disputes have been principally upon the details of the operations of the doctrine, and still more often upon the meaning of certain words. The underlying doctrine of cause and effect has been accepted as correct by practically all the thinkers of the world worthy of the name. To think otherwise would be to take the phenomena of the universe from the domain of law and order, and to relegate it to the control of the imaginary something which men have called chance. A little consideration will show anyone that there is in reality no such thing as pure chance. The word chance is defined as follows: a supposed agent or mode of activity other than a force, law or purpose, the operation or activity of such agent, the supposed effect of such an agent, a happening, fortuity, casualty, etc. But a little consideration will show you that there can be no such agent as chance, in this sense of something outside of law, something outside of cause and effect. How could there be a something acting in the phenomenal universe, independent of the laws, order, and continuity of the latter? Such a something would be entirely independent of the orderly trend of the universe, and therefore superior to it. We can imagine nothing outside of the all being outside of the law, and that only because the all is the law in itself. There is no room in the universe for a something outside of and independent of law. The existence of such a something would render all natural laws ineffective, and would plunge the universe into chaotic disorder and lawlessness. A careful examination will show that what we call chance is merely an expression relating to obscure causes, causes that we cannot perceive, causes that we cannot understand. The word chance is derived from a word meaning, to fall, as the falling of dice, the idea being that the fall of the dice, and many other happenings, are merely a happening unrelated to any cause. And this is the sense in which the term is generally employed. But when the matter is closely examined, it is seen that there is no chance whatsoever about the fall of the dice. Each time a die falls, and displays a certain number, it obeys a law as infallible as that, which governs the revolution of the planets around the sun. Back of the fall of the die are causes, or chains of causes, running back further than the mind can follow. The position of the die in the box, the amount of muscular energy expended in the throw, the condition of the table, etc. All are causes, the effect of which may be seen. But back of these seen causes there are chains of unseen preceding causes, all of which had a bearing upon the number of the die, which fell uppermost. If a die be cast a great number of times, it will be found that the numbers shown will be about equal, that is, here will be an equal number of 1 spot, 2 spot, etc., coming uppermost. Toss a penny in the air, and it may come down either heads or tails, but make a sufficient number of tosses, and the heads and tails will about even up. This is the operation of the law of average. But both the average and the single toss come under the law of cause and effect, and if we were able to examine into the preceding causes, it would be clearly seen that it was simply impossible for the die to fall other than it did, under the same circumstances and at the same time. Given the same causes, the same results will follow. There is always a cause in A because to every event. Nothing ever happens without a cause, or rather a chain of causes. Some confusion has arisen in the minds of persons considering the doctrine, from the fact that they were unable to explain how one thing could cause another thing. Al-Haadi is, be the creator, of the second thing. As a matter of fact, no thing ever causes or creates another thing. Cause and effect deals merely with events. An event is that which comes, arrives or happens, as a result or consequent of some preceding event. No event creates another event. Hut is merely a preceding link in the great orderly chain of events flowing from the creative energy of the all. There is a continuity between all events precedent, consequent and subsequent. There is a relation existing between everything that follows. A stone is dislodged from a mountainside and crashes through a roof of a cottage in the valley below. At first sight we regard this as a chance effect, but when we examine the matter we find a great chain of causes behind it. In the first place there was the rain which softened the earth supporting the stone and which allowed it to fall. Then back of that was the influence of the sun, other rains, etc., which gradually disintegrated the piece of rock from a larger piece. Then there were the causes, which led to the formation of the mountain, and its upheaval by convulsions of nature, and so on ad infinitum. Then we might follow up the cause behind the rain, etc. Then we might consider the existence of the roof. In short, we would soon find ourselves involved in a mesh of cause and effect, from which we would soon strive to extricate ourselves. Just as a mortal has 2 parents, and 4 grandparents, and 8 great-grandparents, and 16 great-great-grandparents, and so on until when, say, 40 generations are calculated the numbers of ancestors run into many millions, so it is with the number of causes behind even the most trifling event or phenomena, such as the passage of a tiny speck of soot before your eye. It is not an easy matter to trace the bit of soot back to the early period of the world's history when it formed a part of a massive tree trunk, which was afterward converted into coal, and so on, until as the speck of soot it now passes before your vision on its way to other adventures. And a mighty chain of events, causes and effects, brought it to its present condition, and the latter is but one of the chain of events which will go to produce other events hundreds of years from now. One of the series of events arising from the tiny bit of soot was the writing of these lines, which caused the typesetter to perform certain work, the proofreader to do likewise, and which will arouse certain thoughts in your mind, and that of others, which in turn will affect others, and so on, and on, and on, beyond the ability of mortal to think further, and all from the passage of a tiny bit of soot, all of which shows the relativity and association of things, and the further fact that there is no great, there is no small, in the mind that causeth all. Stop to think a moment. If a certain mortal had not met a certain maid, away back in the dim period of time, pre-dynastic period in ancient Egypt, you who are now reading these lines would not now be here. And if, perhaps, the same couple had failed to meet, we who now write these lines would not now be here. And the very act of writing, on our part, and the act of reading, on yours, will affect not only the respective lives of yourself and ourselves, but will also have a direct, or indirect, effect upon many other people now living and who will live in the ages to come. Every thought we think, every act we perform, has its direct and indirect results, which fit into the great chain of cause and effect. We do not wish to enter into a consideration of free will, or determinism, in this work, for various reasons. Among the many reasons, is the doctrine, one that neither side of the controversy is entirely right, in fact, both sides are partially right, according to the Egyptian teachings. The doctrine of polarity shows that both are but half-truths, the opposing poles of truth. The teachings are that a mortal may be both free and yet bound by necessity, depending upon the meaning of the terms, and the height of truth from which the matter is examined. The ancient writers express the matter thus: the further the creation is from the center, the more it is bound, the nearer the center it reaches, the nearer free is it. The majority of people are more or less the slaves of heredity, environment, etc., and manifest very little freedom. They are swayed by the opinions, customs and thoughts of the outside world, and also by their emotions, feelings, moods, etc. They manifest no mastery, worthy of the name. They indignantly repudiate this assertion, saying, "Why, I certainly am free to act and do as I please, I do just what I want to do," but they fail to explain whence arise the want to and as I please. What makes them want to do one thing in preference to another? What makes them please to do this, and not do that? Is there no because to their pleasing and wanting? The master can change these pleases and wants into others at the opposite end of the mental pole. They are able to will, instead of to will because some feeling, mood, emotion, or environmental suggestion arouses a tendency or desire within him so to do. The majority of people are carried along like the falling stone, obedient to environment, outside influences and internal moods, desires, etc., not to speak of the desires and wills of others stronger than themselves, heredity, environment, and suggestion, carrying them along without insistence on their part, or the exercise of the will. Moved like the pawns on the checkerboard of life, they play their parts and are laid aside after the game is over. But the masters, knowing the rules of the game, rise above the plane of material life, and placing themselves in touch with the higher powers of their nature, dominate their own moods, characters, qualities, and polarity, as well as the environment surrounding them, and thus become movers in the game, instead of pawns, causes instead of effects. The masters do not escape the causation of the higher planes, but fall in with the higher laws, and thus master circumstances on the lower plane. They thus form a conscious part of the law, instead of being mere blind instruments. While they serve on the higher planes, they rule on the material plane. But, on higher and on lower, the law is always in operation. The blind deity has been abolished by reason. We are able to see now, with eyes made clear by right knowledge, that everything is governed by universal law, that the infinite number of laws are but manifestations of the one great law, the law which is the all. It is true indeed that not a sparrow drops unnoticed by the mind the all, that even the 9 ether woolly hairs on our head are numbered as the Bible and Quran, and they both have birth dates. But what about before them? There is nothing outside of law, nothing that happens contrary to it. And yet, do not make the mistake of supposing that mortal is but a blind automaton, far from that. The Egyptian teachings are that mortals may use law to overcome laws, and that the higher will always prevail against the lower, until at last they have reached the stage in which they seek refuge in the law itself, and laughs the phenomenal laws to scorn. Are you able to grasp the inner meaning of this?